I'm live. Hello. Hello, anybody. Nobody's here yet, but I'm still going to go live and talk. And I'm sorry I'm a little late because I was doing another deep dive into that with trade and banks and FCC stuff. And whew, it's always so scary. So there's just so many people now talking about Project 2025. Um, you know, uh, one of the things, the funniest things I heard it called the other day was the brainchild of the American extremists, which of course is appropriate because it is. And it is a guide to becoming authoritarian, taking all of the power and doing unequal things. I don't know who that person is. That person, can you say hello to me, or is that just me that's on? I don't know. Okay, so I guess it's just me that's on. My hair's a mess today. All right. Anyway, um, somebody said, "Well, could you talk some about women and things that are happening to women?" And the thing that I keep coming back to in my head is that women are not having their rights sustained; they are actually having them taken away. So, does anybody know what year women were allowed to? Um, what year women were allowed to get a loan by themselves without their husband? And somebody had done a post about that, and the husband kept going in 1934, 1950, 1960. No, it's 1988, which really isn't all that long ago. 98, 08, 18. So we're talking 30 something years. And before that, women did not have the right to go to a bank and get a loan on their own. So women were the last people in our country to get the right to vote, which was back in the early turn of the century, and that amendment passed finally. So women have been treated like second-class citizens, and it looks like they're planning on treating us like second-class citizens again. Young ladies now in red states don't have the right, and let's just be clear that even though we talk about Project 2025, it's already in action. It's already happening. People are actively going and applying, sending the resumes in to become one of the people that gets hired. It is politically correct as a political appointee on day one of a Republican administration. And let's be clear, they don't care. The extremist right, the Heritage Foundation, they do not care if Trump wins. As long as they get a conservative agenda, a conservative Congress, and a conservative president, they're going to enact Project 2025. And it is, I keep saying scary, but it is horrible, horrible, and not something that we want. So I'm going to just go through. I wrote a bunch of notes and tell you stuff that I wrote, and I also copied and pasted a bunch of stuff too. So, things you need to know. Oh, thanks for everybody that voted yesterday in the primary. Um, we had like I'm so bad at percentages. A little over 10% of registered Democrats voted, maybe, or 7%, something like that. But in any event, um, yeah, one of the things I copied was all of us need to educate ourselves on Project 2025, funded and promoted by the Heritage Foundation, and most of all, do whatever we can to make sure that it fails, which I agree with. And then one of the objectives of Project 2025 is to eliminate over 2 million federal civil servant positions, which they deem to be unnecessary. Their aim is to restructure U.S. government and replace it with their radical version. And the Biden administration, however, just passed a new rule strengthening protections of federal civil job positions. So that's a good thing. A good thing. There's a podcast called Gaslit Nation, and they gave an early warning about Project 2025. People are now starting to pay attention. Another early warning system is journalist Ann Nelson, the author of Shadow Network, Media, Money, and the Secret Hub of the Radical Right. So write that down for yourself to follow up on and look into. We've got Gaslit Nation. I believe it's a podcast. And then Ann Nelson wrote The Shadow Network, Media, Money, and the Secret Hub of the Radical Right. So, anyway, one of the things that you need to be aware of, they keep talking about getting rid of wokeness and the elites and all of that. But the truth is that the elites are, in fact, the billionaires, the people that are very rich, and the corporations. And they're perfectly happy to have all of our rights taken away as long as they're making record-breaking profits, which they are. And they're not paying taxes because of the 2017 tax break that Trump gave them. And they're perfectly happy to have that. And they don't care. There's a special episode created by Gaslit Nation that tells you everything you need to know about Project 2025, the decades-long rise of Christian nationalism backed by big oil and coal to prevent and roll back regulations and turn America into a dictatorship to protect record profits. The Shadow Network has been looking for a strongman for decades, and Trump is their long-awaited strongman to finish the job. Or you could call him a useful idiot, because he is. He's a felon now, so good luck with that. And I just point out, the last thing I want to point out about just generalizations is that if you are going to actually vote, and you're not going to vote for either, you just flat out have to vote for the Democrats. If you don't vote for the Democrats, you throw your vote away on, say, Robert Kennedy, who is being funded by, the biggest GOP donation for Trump. The same guy is funding both of them. So I think that's kind of a red flag. If you don't vote now and get up and go vote, then next time around, you won't have the option of voting because there won't be a next time around. They are clearly indicating to us that they are going to take our voting rights away. They want to suppress voters. They've pulled people off of rolls. They are all about, really damaging BIPOC, which is people of indigenous, racial, I can't say the right sequence of words, but people that don't look like you and me, anybody that looks different, or that sexual orientation is different, or that is transgender, or any of those things, those are people that they are planning on hurting in some way, by removing health care, by not allowing them to obtain insurance, by not allowing all kinds of devastating things. So you need to vote. You need to vote. A lot of people didn't vote in the primary, and I know locally we didn't have any Democrats running, which always makes me very sad. And there were a number of races throughout. You can look it up on the Secretary of State in New Mexico's results page for elections, how many uncontested races there are. And it's kind of disturbing. I'm just going to throw that out there. All right, let me talk about women. On page 4 of this book of the mandate, which I try not to lift it up every day, in front of you, they want to eliminate marriage penalty in federal welfare programs and the tax code, and install woke requirements for food stamps, which it's already doing. Work programs. They want to install work requirements for the food stamp program. And that sounds like a great thing. They already do it for able-bodied adults. If you have disabled household members, or you're a disabled person, there's no work requirement. If you're taking care of a child under 6, there's no work requirement. But if you're an able-bodied adult, then there's a work requirement, and you have to go. I don't know how to get that glare out of my eyes. All right. Anyway, maybe I'll do this. Do that. Oh, maybe that's okay. So eliminate the marriage penalty in federal welfare programs. That means they think that single people get an advantage and married people do not, and that is not necessarily the case. They want to elevate authority, formation and cohesion, and use government power, including tax code, to restore the American family. Let me repeat that. They want to elevate families, authorities, formation, and cohesiveness, and use government power, including the tax code, in order to restore the American family. So if they're helping one segment of society, what's the odds they're helping everyone? The odds are they're not focused on everyone. If you don't fit their description of an American family, which is a husband and a wife, male and female, and children, they don't have much use for you. You're not who they want. You're not part of their Christian nationalism. So they want to make, this is all on page 4, by the way. They want to make institutions of American civil society hard targets. Institutions of American civil society. Now, what might those be? They want to determine the following from, God, I can't read my writing, from all, they want to delete the following from terms from all of legislative, federal rules, regulations, contracts, grants, etc. And I think I really should read that list to you of all the words they're going to remove from the English language, even though we have, what do we have? Oh, the First Amendment. Okay, let me read them to you. They want to delete terms, sexual orientation, gender identity, diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI is called, gender, gender equality, gender equity, gender awareness, gender sensitivity, abortion, reproductive health, reproductive rights, and any other term used to deprive Americans of their First Amendment rights out of every federal rule, agency regulation, contract, grant, regulation, and piece of legislation that exists. Wow. How is that standing up to your First Amendment? I mean, the government rules have those words in them, and you are now saying, in order to ensure your First Amendment rights aren't being violated, we're going to remove these words. Sorry. It just doesn't even make sense. Please make it make sense. On page 6, eliminate something for children. Gosh, my writing is horrible. Dobbs, on page 6, Dobbs, just the beginning. Every jurisdiction in America must push to protect the unborn. Every jurisdiction in America. So, sounds federal to me. So, if you're going to protect the unborn, what you're basically saying is that there will be no more abortions anywhere, ever. So, blue state, red state, they're going to make a federal law saying you can't get abortion as health care. And oh, by the way, in the book, it says abortion isn't health care, although doctors may argue with you on that point. Page 8, bureaucrats in the Department of Education inject racist things, racist comments and things in our history of America. Historical propaganda into classrooms. That's what they think of the Department of Education as being. Somebody that feeds our children propaganda about racism or about CTR, which they want to abolish and unfund any agency that ever talks about critical race theory. Let me just tell you, my son, my wonderful, lovely son, studied political science. And it was when he was like starting his doctoral program that he came home and he asked me, did I know what CRT was? And I said, no. And at that time, CRT had not become a radical right expression in order to incite their voting public against Americans or against the left. CTR actually My son explained it to me. It's a graduate level term taught in graduate level universities, and it's called critical race theory. And critical race theory, if you don't know what it is, you should look it up. But my version of an interpretation of critical race theory is that all of our laws and all of our policies have impacted people that are different than us. So, for instance, when Levittown was being built in Pennsylvania and it was track housing after the war, they said anybody, any veteran could get a loan to go and get a house built in that in Leviton, however you say it. But the truth was is that if you were black, you couldn't get a loan because they didn't want blacks living in that part of the country, so or at the of the town. And it's the same scenario with um, black families being kind of controlled about where they can live in communities, and they very often put them next to industrialized areas, so manufacturing plants and things like that, and then they can get loans for houses there, but they can't get loans for houses anywhere else. And so this is impacting, a black family's ability to to grow and move and have the same opportunities that white people have. And if you don't understand, you know, how that's not the same opportunity, then you're the one that's experiencing the white privilege. Because if you can't relate to somebody else's version of that, then, and I'm getting uncomfortable because I don't want to speak for other people. I'm a white woman. I don't know. I don't know a lot of that stuff. But again, critical race theory is policies designed around controlling and enforcing issues without it being in writing that impact disparately. They impact people of color, of different races, of different religions, and that's totally not okay. It's very unfair. So the Department of Education is up for closure. They want to just get rid of the whole thing, the federal one. They want to put all of the Department of Education back down to state level and local level. Um, um, on page 9, it says the president can use handcuffs to control the bureaucracy. So they plan on giving him so many broad sweeping powers that he can now handcuff different agencies. That's on page 9. On page 13, religious they actually wrote this that religious oh my gosh, my writing does I guess destiny or something and spirituality are the greatest sources of happiness around the world. That if you're a spiritual and religious person, then you're happier than anybody else because you have spirituality and religion. And that is the radical right's view and why they want to go Christian nationalism in this country. And they say that the framers called that the blessings of liberty. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that interpretation of our Constitution or the Declaration of Independence, where you can find that phrase actually. Page 16. This I actually put on one of my social media accounts underneath a chapter called Best Efforts. It says, this book, this agenda, this entire Project 2025 is a plan to unite the conservative movement and the American people against elite rule and woke culture warriors. That is their entire agenda. And I said earlier in the show that yes, but elite rule and culture warriors, those are them. They are telling you that they want to get all the leftists and the Democrats out of the government and control everything. And it's not to our advantage. So I did write the word abortion, and I'm not sure where I got all this. But underneath abortion, they want to ostracize single women, implement a federal ban on abortion, ban mifepristone, which is a drug that helps to abort children chemically. And they want to White House task force on pro-life issues. Add work requirements for Medicaid. We don't have them now, but they want to, if you want Medicaid, they want to do that. They want to cancel Head Start for children. They want to expand access to fertility awareness and family planning methods. In other words, you can learn all about how to have a family, but you cannot learn how to prevent one, because they also want to get rid of contraceptives. So women will not have contraceptives. The Office of Secretary wants to eliminate the Health and Human Services Reproductive Health Care Access Task Force. Just eliminate that agency. That's on page 489. Installing a pro-life task force that will promote life and health of women and their unborn children. On page 489, also reject the notion that abortion is health care. That's on page 489. On page 468, the work requirements, they add targeted time limits or lifetime caps on benefits, we're talking health insurance, to disincentivize permanent dependence. I love how they just arbitrarily say something like that, but then they don't consider that they're the reason that the insurance companies are so expensive and so not affordable, so that people have to go on Medicaid. Let's talk about Walmart and how many employees of Walmart are on Medicaid because they, in their record-breaking profit years, I mean, they're over like $300 trillion. Do you even know how many $1 trillion is? How much is a million? How much is $999 million? Is almost $1 billion. So then you get to billionaires, and that's X amount of millionaires to billionaires. And billionaires say, if you spent $1 million a day, it would take you 32 years in order to spend $1 billion. And they have 250, say, or I think Elon Musk has most, $1 billion. And yet you have people that are trying to survive the fact that these corporations like Walmart with their great value food raise the price of the great value food that was supposed to be lower than the actual mainstream one. And so let's not forget that they're not our friends. The corporations are not our friends. And Walmart is the largest recipient of taxpayer-funded insurance benefits. And nobody's yelling and screaming about that. But you're mad at the single woman that's trying to feed her family. Sure, that's a smart thing to do. Page 467, they want to add an asset test to determine whether you can be Medicaid eligible. So for women, that would be assets. You know what an asset is? It's a car, it's a house, it's money in the bank, it's 401k, it's life insurance. It could be anything they determine as an asset. And on page 458, they say, after the SCOTUS decision, saying the SCOTUS decision that basically ended Roe versus Wade was the Hobbs case. And they said, now SCOTUS, after 60 years of precedent, they hired just enough of the right people. Leonard Leo got all these Heritage Foundation and a Federalist Society law school students and vetted them. And now they're there and they are behaving very politically, which is absolutely antithetical to what they're supposed to be doing on the Supreme Court. They're not supposed to be doing any of that. They're not finders of fact. But here in the decision they made yesterday in South Carolina on the voting rights, they went ahead and they arbitrarily decided, Justice Alito decided that he didn't like the facts the way they were written. He was going to rewrite them. He found certain facts not to be true. So that means that it's okay to gerrymander your congressional maps so that you can hide people religiously from one to the other. So on page 680, the Department of Commerce, my roommate's home. They want to add a citizenship test question to our census, which is, I think we can all agree, is not a good idea in most of the countries. They say the United Nations considers that to be a best practice. But That is not what most countries do, is ask that question when they do citizenship tests. And so what is important about that is we do a census every 10 years because we allocate money based on the number of people, the population size of cities. So like if you have 500,000 people in Roswell, New Mexico, then you get funded for that. Like, and it's, you need, 30 garbage trucks to be able to maintain that size city. I'm exaggerating. I have no idea how many you need. But if you've got 50,000 people that are contributing garbage, then they need the resources. The city and the taxpayers' money needs to go to the city so that they can take care of 50,000 people and have a landfill for 50,000 people. These are, and it doesn't matter if they're a citizen or not, because they're still using the systems. They're still using the roads. They're still, purchasing light and water and all of those things. They're still using those resources, and you need to have. It doesn't matter if they're a citizen or not. If they're here, lawful permanent residency and living here, working, it doesn't matter. You just need to know how many citizens there are, how many, not citizens, but how many people there are in that community on that snapshot day. So that's just another thing they're going to add. On page 559, and I'm kind of off the women topic again, but on page 559, just because I've just been going all over the place. They want to remove the regulations for teenagers so that they can work in factories that are dangerous, where previous laws have said that they can't do it. And how do I know that that's actually it's in the works? When I say they've already started doing things. Well, I told you about Florida, and they removed workers' rights to have a break or to cool down and get out of the heat if they're out working in the fields. They've just taken those away. In Kentucky, and this is quite a while ago, like 2 years ago, Kentucky decided that, it's okay for high school students to work nights in a factory that, they may end up injured and maimed or killed. And so now they want to do that with the federal government under the Department of Labor's laws. So on page 717, they want to abolish the Export-Import Bank. And I don't know that, I don't know enough about that yet to tell you if that's a good thing, but they say they want to abolish it. On page 839, they want to abolish the Consumer Financial Protection Agency completely because it's not serving its purpose properly, and it is too restrictive. And we can take care of ourselves. We should let banks take over that function. Except for it was banks that were screwing Americans every single time. And banks that don't give loans to people that look different than you and I do, or banks that have decided you're not a good risk. I'm not going to give you, you're a woman. You can't have a loan on your own. Come on. And so a Consumer Financial Protection Agency was born after the 2008 crash, and Dodd-Frank created that agency so that consumers had a place to go and get help when they were screwed over. They want to return it both to the banks and to the Federal Trade Commission. But they also want to go and repeal parts of Dodd-Frank, so it makes it easier for banks not to have that much regulation or control. Well, that's all I wrote for today. So, there's still so much stuff. It's very disturbing things. So, let me think if I have anything still on my phone that I didn't talk about. I'm almost done anyway. Look, it's almost time. I did talk about Gaslit Nation. I did talk about that. Let's see if I can. Let's talk really quick in a minute and a half on the first chapter of On Tyranny by Timothy Snyder, the Yale professor. There's a prologue, History and Tyranny. It says, number 1, do not obey in advance. Most of the power of authoritarianism is freely given. In times like these, individuals think ahead about what a more repressive government will want, and then offer themselves without being asked. A citizen who adapts in this way is teaching power what it can do. So I would say to you right now that I should read this whole thing to you. Do I have time? No, I don't really have have time to read the first chapter. But anticipatory obedience is a political tragedy. Perhaps rulers did not initially know that citizens were willing to compromise this value or this principle. Perhaps the new regime did not at first have the direct means of influencing citizens one way or another. After the German elections of 1932, which permitted Adolf Hitler to form a government, or the Czechoslovak elections of 1946, where communists were victorious, the next crucial step was anticipatory obedience, because enough people on both sides voluntarily extended their services to the new leaders. That's what's happening right now. They are gathering their forces, and the conservatives are flocking to fill out online their loyalty pledges to Donald Trump and the conservative agenda, the extremist conservative agenda. So how do we combat that? What do we do to solve that? We do not obey in advance. That's chapter 1 of On Tyranny. I think you should get it. It's like $7 on Amazon. And I think I'm done for today. But I just wanted to share some more of what's in store, the big picture, and then all the little nitty-gritty things that are happening and that are happening as we speak in different states. Start paying attention to what state legislatures are doing in different states. They are planning not to certify the election. Doesn't matter who wins. If Biden wins, they're not going to certify it. And they have people in place that will try and prevent the certification of our election. So we need to vote, and vote so much and so hard. It's not even funny. And you need to tell all your friends. So I'm Sarah MacArthur, and I appreciate you watching the video. And good luck. There's only like 150 days until the election. So we've got work to do. All right. Have a great day. Bye.